The common good is a subject that comes up quite a bit in Catholic social teaching. Why is that? And how do we as Americans talk about the common good when we have a culture that has such high regard and praise for individualism? These are the questions Americans have been struggling with since the beginning of our nation. We'll discuss that dichotomy next on Finding Communion. Hello, welcome to Finding Communion. I'm Rosemary Ford, editor of Parable Magazine, and I'm here with Bob Dunn, the Director of Public Policy for the Diocese of Manchester. This podcast and the column of the same name in Parable Magazine discuss the Church's work in the public square and the intersection of faith and politics. Today we're going to talk about the common good and also the American Revolution and how those two subjects coincide. So, Bob, what do we mean about the common good when we talk about that in the context of Catholic social teaching?
The common good is one of the fundamental principles of Catholic social teaching. It is, along with human dignity, one of the pillars of Catholic social teaching. And it really boils down to the principle that we don't look out for our own self-interests. We look out first for the good of other people and of society as a whole. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the common good as something that runs through almost every document that pertains to how we implement the gospel in the modern world.
Sure. It also shows up in quite a few American documents as well from the beginning of our nation. Would you share that with us as a history buff that you are?
Sure. Well, we're in the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, and we're now sort of coming into the latter part of 2025, and 250 years ago was 1775, and that, of course, was the year when the revolution began, mm-hmm. or at least the military conflict part of the revolution began.
Exactly. Or as we say in this neck of the woods, where the shot heard around the world was actually heard first.
Yes. And of course, like all other things, we New Englanders need to make it all about us.
Absolutely.
But it was about us. The early months of the military conflict unfolded in Massachusetts. With the Battle of Lexington and Concord on April 19th, 1775, and then the Siege of Boston that ensued, and the Battle of Bunker Hill in June of 1775. Mm-hmm. At Bunker Hill in particular, New Hampshire soldiers played a massively important role, and General John Stark was in command of those New Hampshire troops. And it would be General Stark who would give us our state motto through a toast that he gave to a gathering many years after the end of the Revolution, where he said, "Live free or die." And that motto, I think, is misunderstood today, just as the Minutemen themselves are misunderstood. Mm-hmm. We have come to see that motto and those men as the embodiment of rugged individualism.
Yeah.
And that plays into this idea that radical individualism is what the revolution was about and what our nation is all about. And I think that the historical record would tell us that nothing could be further from the truth, because what the revolution was about was not throwing off the shackles of civic involvement or obligations or community, but it was really throwing off the shackles of the British crown and the British Parliament. So we know what these folks were about. We know from their writings what they were about and why they did what they did. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to remember that the constitutions that were adopted by the states, including New Hampshire, and then the United States Constitution, all are approaching what the government was going to be like from the perspective of the common good. Mm-hmm. The New Hampshire Constitution starts off in Part 1, Article 1, with the declaration that government is instituted for the general good. And the U.S. Constitution starts off with a preamble that says that one of the reasons this government is being created is to promote the general welfare. And the first words of the U.S. Constitution, of course, are "we the people." It's not "we a bunch of rugged individualists." It's "we the people." Mm-hmm. And so the idea that the revolution was a revolution to advance the principle of radical individualism is just plain wrong, I would contend.
Absolutely. So, what does the common good mean for Catholics when we're talking about the public square?
The church looks at issues like basic human needs, food, shelter, healthcare, through the prism of the common good. And it is our advocacy for the common good, I think, makes us somewhat unique in the modern world, because there's so much of an emphasis on trying to advance one's own self-interest when it comes to all sorts of different things in society, but in particular in the political world. Yeah. So our job as Catholics is to advance this principle that is not only this fundamental principle of Catholic social teaching, but as we just discussed, it's a fundamental principle of the body politic that emerged out of the American Revolution. So for us as Catholics who are American citizens, the common good is something that is doubly in our wheelhouse.
Sure. And, how do we balance the common good and the good of the individual, especially today in the United States where, the individual is so heavily emphasized?
One of the, genius aspects of Catholic social teaching is its ability to look at life in a holistic way. Mm-hmm. So we don't argue that the common good overrides individual rights
or individual liberties.
We look at how we balance the common good and the rights of individuals. So, as I know I've said before on this podcast, I think of Catholic social teaching as putting the balance between that left speaker that is the common good and the right-hand speaker that is individualism. We're putting the balance right between those two speakers
in the middle,
and trying to keep those principles in mind as we engage in politics.
Sure. We're in the midst of celebrating the American Revolution. How do we carry those things, ahead, those values from the American Revolution and that time period to today and bring that back to it?
As Catholics, we need to look at everything that we do in the public square in the light of the common good, because that is a fundamental principle of our teaching. It is a fundamental principle that comes to us from the gospel. But the common good is doubly within our wheelhouse because we're Catholics who are Americans. And so one of the things that we can and should do, especially during this anniversary period where we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, is to do what we do in our liturgy, to remember, right? The Eucharist is a memorial of the suffering and death of the Lord. As Americans, we need to remember what was suffered for us by those who have defended our nation over the centuries, and especially those who suffered during the American Revolution. And we need to remember the principles that they fought for and that they announced in the founding documents. We're going to be coming up on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in July. And we need to keep in mind what the words of that declaration were. that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that all people are created equal. These are the founding principles, and we need to make sure that we adhere to them, because that's what we are as Americans. For those of us who are Catholic, because those principles are so tightly connected with our own view of life and the world, we have to be in the forefront of that remembrance and a commitment to those ideals.
Absolutely. I mean, people look at the revolution and they focus on the fighting, but, it's important to remember that the real revolution was the ideas that those men, put forth that changed the world. So, and you're right, they dovetail so well with Catholic teaching these days, even though most of them weren't Catholic. So there you go. Bob, thanks again. Great talking with you as always.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us here on Finding Communion. Please check our show notes for more on this topic. And don't forget to check out the latest edition of Parable Magazine. You can find it on catholicnh.org/parable. And if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks again. See you later.